Hello and welcome back to another session on literary criticism and theory. We continue with the forms, literary forms. We shall, with this, we end we would have completed the literary forms. We have already completed concepts, and with satire we shall complete literary forms, and then we shall come to the most important section of the text, and that is the main essays. We will start with the lyrical ballads soon after we complete this, that is. So satire. Satire is of classical origin. The plays of Greek Aristophanes are masterpieces. Its chief exponents in Latin literature were Horace, Persius and Juvenal. They were a great influence on all the European countries during and after the Renaissance. They set the model for Elizabethan and Augustan satire in England. Etymologically, a satire is an unpolished verse. A satire, therefore, can be classified as a literary composition whose principal aim is to ridicule folly or vice of humankind. A satire can be in the form of poetry or verse. In the form of poetry or verse, it can be in the form of an ode, an elegy, a ballad, or anything else. Even a novel can be written as a satire. So it can be described as the literary art of diminishing or derogating a subject by making it look ridiculous and evoking towards it attitudes of amusement or contempt or scorn or indignation. Okay. It is, however, different from comedy. Comedy evokes laughter. Its main aim is to entertain and evoke laughter, while satire uses laughter as a weapon to correct several weaknesses or flaws or the things that needs correction. Is that, as I told you earlier, comedy is different. It is for our enjoyment, it is for our entertainment, whereas satire is not so. It has a cause, it has a reason. It could be, as I told you, a personal satire or an attack against an evil practice or a corrupt government and so on. Let me give you two examples to tell you the difference. If you look at Shakespeare and his character Falstaff, that is a comic creation. Whereas, if you look at Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, Falstaff is in King Henry the Fourth, the King Henry series. That series, you have Falstaff as a character. You have Falstaff coming as a character in Merry Wives of Windsor also. Anyway, Shakespeare's Falstaff is a comic creation, whereas if you look at Malvolio in Twelfth Night, Malvolio is a satire. It is a satire, or the character is, or this is an attack on Puritanism. Malvolio, the character Malvolio. So that's the difference between comedy and satire. Satire has usually been justified by those who use it as a corrective human vice and as a corrective of human vice and folly. Whoever uses this satire, they use it. Their justification of using the satire is that they want to correct certain weaknesses that they find in around us. The satirist justifies that this is the main aim of their work, that is, to correct human follies. A satire can be found in poetry as well as in prose, and in poetry or verse, a satire can be in the form of elegy, it can be in the form of a ballad or anything else. So a satire, basically speaking, has no literary form. It appears in novel and drama also. A satire can be formal or indirect. In a formal satire, the first person singular is used. that is I. For example, Pope's moral essays. Or it could be a character itself called the adversaries, whose major artistic function is to elicit and add credibility to the satiric speaker's comments. There are two types of satire: Horatian satire and Juvenalian satire. Juvenalian satire, that is. In Horatian satire, the character is urban, or he's an urban man, he's from the city, a city man who is witty, who is tolerant, and he understands the world. So he's a very wise person. He makes fun of the human follies, weaknesses, and stupidities, their pretentiousness, the hypocrisies, and his tone is relaxed and he uses informal language. He uses this relaxed and informal language to evoke laughter from the audience at the human weaknesses and absurdities that he sees. Sometimes the character includes his own follies also, his own weaknesses and he laughs at his own stupidities or his own weaknesses, includes his own follies and his own weaknesses, and leaves it to the readers to think about it and laugh. When they laugh at it, they think about the stupidities that is committed by these or absurdities committed by these characters. So it's a kind of correction that is happening, a satire through using the weapon of laughter is, they are correcting. It's a kind of correction of human follies. Horace himself described his aim to laugh people out of their vices and follies. That's what Horace says. Pope's moral essay is an example to Horatian satire. Juvenalian satire. In Juvenalian satire, the character is a moralist who uses a dignified and public style of utterance. His style is different from that of the Horatian satire. He uses a very dignified and public style of utterance to decry modes of vices and error which are to be ridiculed. These weaknesses may not be a dangerous crime. It need not be dangerous crimes, okay? But there are things like miserliness, pomposity, extravagance, all that you see around, those weaknesses that you see around, they are being ridiculed at. In juvenile satire, it evokes the readers or evokes from the readers contempt, a kind of contempt, and also moral indignation and human errors that ought to be ridiculed. Okay, so it is a kind of making the readers aware of such stupidities and thereby correcting their own stupidity. So the reader is able to find or try, or it's a kind of self-evaluation also, and also the reader, while reading it, he evokes a contempt for these kind of absurdities that he see around. Okay, an example would be Samuel Johnson's London, The Vanity of Human Wishes, and so on. Now, another type of satire is indirect satire. Here, there is no direct address to the readers. It's not in the first person singular. There is no direct address here like that you find in Juvenalian satire or the Horatian satire. It either would be a fictional character or it would be a fictional narrative in which the objects of satire are characters who make themselves and their opinions look ridiculous or obnoxious by what they think, say or do. So you will have characters speaking or acting and saying things that are ridiculous and obnoxious, and thereby it's a kind of indirect satire. There is no narrator there to tell you of or pinpoint those absurdities, whereas you will find characters doing all ridiculous things and you laugh at these characters' stupidities or absurdities. Okay, that's an indirect satire. So they are sometimes made even more ridiculous. Sometimes the author comments on it. The author's comments and narrative style, the way he uses some certain narrative styles, make them look even more ridiculous. One type of indirect satire is the Menippean satire. This is modeled on cynic philosopher Menippus. It is sometimes also called Varronian satire after the Roman imitator Varro. Northrop Frye, in Anatomy of Criticism, suggests an alternative name called anatomy. Such satires are usually written in prose with some poetry in it, with some little bit of poetry in it. So it's mostly this Menippean satire is mostly written in prose with a little bit of poetry in it, and it constructs a form which is called narrative. Okay, a prominent feature of this satire is extended dialogues and debates. One important feature of this sort of satire, the Menippean satire, is the large extended dialogues and debates. There would be usually these characters or the settings would be depicted in a party or a banquet where you would find talkative people and eccentrics and pedants and literary people, and also people representing various profession. They would argue and debate on a particular point of view, and they are made to look, or they are shown as ludicrous, and it evokes laughter. Example to this would be Voltaire's Candide and Thomas Love Peacock's Nightmare Abbey, Aldous Huxley's Point Counterpoint, and so on. And satires can also be personal satires. Okay, it's not just ridiculing an institution or a nation alone. It can also be a personal satire. For example, John Dryden. His Macflecknoe is a personal satire. It was his enmity with Thomas Shadwell. They were friends. Initially, they were friends, but later turned enemies over a silly, very trivial matter, and it's mostly political also. It was like a political enmity as well. So they fought each other. It was like a pen fight in the sense, not the kind of pen fight that you have. I mean, I was just trying to relate it. I mean, a kind of war. Okay, where they would battle or battle each other using satire. They would fight using satire. So Macflecknoe is a personal satire where Thomas Shadwell is shown as an ignorant, idiotic, absolutely stupid person in the poem. Dryden makes him look ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. In fact, every word, every line of Macflecknoe evokes laughter, and this is an example for personal satire. Then you have also, Dryden also uses this type of Menippean satire in Absalom and Achitophel, which is a story taken from Old Testament, and he has turned this into a satiric allegory. Again, it's a political institution. There he is trying to find or evoke, or it's trying to laugh at the institution or the political institutions. Now, Gulliver's Travels, Jonathan Swift, Gulliver's Travels, it is a satire or uses satire to mock the government or the parliament. And then you have also you have Modus Proposal, Addison's Spectator, Ben Jonson's The Alchemist, Wycherley's The Country Wife, Bernard Shaw's Arms and the Man, and so many of these are examples to satire. Take a look at these satires. Take them down, write them down. Okay, these are examples for Nepean satire. Okay. At the same time, this satire was booming in France as well. Major satirists as Boileau, La Fontaine, Voltaire, as well as Molière were the most eminent of all satirists in drama. In the 19th century, American satire broke free of English domination with the light satiric touch of Washington Irving and his sketchbook, the deft satiric essays of Oliver Wendell Holmes, the autocrat of the breakfast table, and above all, the satiric essays and novels of Mark Twain were a big hit, or were in fact the prominent ones. So with that, we come to the end of the literary forms. See you in the next video. We shall begin the lyrical ballads in the next video. So thank you and keep safe.